Optimum wrzucił film o 16-gramowej myszce gamingowej. No nie,
7
to
jelly
już jest przegina.
beans is about the same weight as this gaming mouse, which is also about the same as a tablespoon of sugar. You might think the Logitech G Pro X is light, but this is a quarter of that. I was curious to see whether or not this would actually be something that
To już jest przegięcie, no na czymś takim bym nie chciał grać,
I took my 3D printed Zero Mouse, I remodeled it to fit the Zonkonig M3K PCB, and the result
Kupuj?
is
Hell no.
something that I actually like quite a lot. No scroll wheel, no side
Czemu?
buttons,
Stary, niewygodna się wydaje być, no kurwa.
no DPI selector, just an incredibly lightweight
On jest dla mnie
shell,
pojebem, bo on w
comfortable
ogóle
grip,
gra na co dzień na myszce, którą sobie wyprintował w drukarce.
and some really
Na bardzo podobnej budowie.
nice clicks. I mean, if you could imagine what a Formula One car would be like as a gaming mouse, then this is pretty much it. And it feels exactly like
kablu
what
jest?
you'd expect a 16-gram gaming mouse to feel like. It feels like, I mean, almost
Przecież kabel cię
nothing.
będzie
I know
bardziej
a lot of
targał
people
niż ta
say that
myszka.
about 40-gram and 50-gram gaming mice, but man, this honestly
Podaj
feels
linka, jak
like
możesz.
just air. Now, if you're thinking, why would that even be good? It's mostly because of the extremely low inertia and basically momentum that something like this has. Lighter objects are more responsive than heavier ones.
Co prawda.
Many of us have felt this when it comes to gaming mice as well. If you've upgraded to something like the Superlight, but previously you were using like a G502, that is an incredibly noticeable difference to how your aim and your input would feel. And the thing is, those benefits don't stop. They continue until you...
Chuj, zaraz dokleję ślizgacze pod PCB od myszki i będę miał 5-gramową myszkę.
The problem though is the amount of compromise when you go this light. So I wanted to make something that didn't feel like compromise. Something where you have
Nie,
a
dziś
really
nie.
optimized
A mnie
set of
liczyłeś?
grip
No
points
Mati,
and
ciebie nie
not
było.
a whole lot else. That is really what Zero Mouse has been about. And the result is this. It's this unbelievably minimal shell,
Chyba, że
which is
poprosisz?
very extreme to look at, but it's
No nie
also
wiem, bo
a
teraz to się z Mati musisz pobić o slota.
super effortless, low tension aiming experience, almost as if your hand is just floating on your mouse pad. Now, if I wanted to, believe it or not, I could actually make this thing
Mati, co ty na to, żeby na taką myszkę się przenieść dla testu?
even lighter. This 16-gram wide prototype, for example, I'm pretty confident I could get this down to like 12 or 13 grams, but then it severely compromises that low tension aiming feel, which is kind of the whole point of this.
Ale nie
in
pasuje mi za chuj, że to jest w ogóle na kablu.
the first place. At close to 10 grams, this thing would be so small you'd have to like really grip onto it and pinch it, which just defeats the purpose. I think this is why a lot of people say shape is king when it comes to gaming mice. Ultimately, you want to find a shape of mouse where it feels really intuitive to aim with, something that feels locked in, but also really relaxed at the same time. Nothing that feels like it's a lot of effort to grip. And that's the main reason why I kind of refuse to make this any smaller than it is. I mean, you put this next to a lot of the medium shell style mice that are out there, which a lot of
Just to
people
wygląda
like,
goofy as
the
fuck.
OP1, the grip width and the contact points are actually not that different. This shell is something that I've actually been pretty
Nie
obsessed
chcesz bić Matiego? Jeszcze ziemniakowi się przyda?
over for the last few months. It's what I'm calling the Zero Mouse V35. One of the biggest criticisms that I had on the V34, which I made as my first mod kit for people to test out this design, was that it could feel a bit flexy at times, especially under tense situations. So this new model is dramatically stiffer. I mean, it's the first thing that I upgraded. We've got this new crossbar support here, which goes between the thumb and the pinky. That has worked insanely well. And I've also added this little support here on the ring finger, which braces against the PCB. I've also reduced the wall
Czekaj,
thickness significantly,
Czekaj, to jest jego firma?
making it almost 3 grams lighter than before. And the crossbar here also works as a neat little holder for the battery. This
Zero Mouse, pokażcie mi to. 280 zł. Nie no, szczerze, to wygląda w chuj niekomfortowo.
massively reduces the moment arm and inertia that you feel on the mouse, especially if you're a wrist aimer. In simple terms, the center of mass is now closer to the base of your wrist, so the mouse now feels a lot lighter at the same weight. And then lastly, there are now deep grooves on each of the contact points.
Not included but required Razer Viper V2 Pro? Co? Ty, what the fuck?
Which might be the biggest improvement overall. The more surface area that can be captured by your fingertips here, the more control you will feel. And
To jest
this
modki
made
do... Aha, czyli PCB jest z Razera.
a massive difference. The Zero Mouse now honestly feels like a refined aiming experience. It took a few iterations to dial in the size of these and the pitch, but I'm super happy with how they turned out. I've actually been using the Zero Mouse now without any grip tape, whereas on the V34 with the flat sides, they were basically required. Now the material here is actually pretty interesting. I haven't spoken about it much because honestly I had planned to move towards ABS injection molding by this point, but after seeing how far I've been able to push this and how light I've been able to make it, It's just really
Tak, czyli to jest jego
impressive.
produkt,
It's a 3D
okej.
printed material called nylon PA12, and it's printed with a process called SLS, or selective laser sintering. Basically, there's a laser which fuses each layer of a powder, and that powder actually acts as the support material for these overhangs that you see here. So you can pretty much print like whatever you want. You don't need to worry about support material at all. It's actually mind-blowing, the quality of prints that you can get with SLS, and it's the only 3D printing process where you don't need to physically print supports like you would with filament printing or with resin printing. So yeah, I'm able to print all of this with a complete unibody shell and only use 3 screws for the PCB. Currently, I'm outsourcing all of my
będziemy potrzebowali
printing to
wsparcia.
Delta 3D in Singapore because the printers that produce these are very expensive, and they've done an absolutely epic job with these. I mean, if you guys are prototyping anything and you want a high quality print, I would definitely recommend checking them out. The best thing about 3D printing though is that you don't have to commit to a final design. You can keep tweaking it and changing it and upgrading it as you learn more about whatever you're building. And that is exactly what I've been doing with this. Injection molded ABS can produce a higher quality part though, and it is more cost effective. It is something that I still kind of want to explore for the final model, which will have an integrated PCB, and that should be ready by the end of the year. ABS also isn't that much more dense than this nylon PA12. It will though involve separating the existing design into 3 separate
No ale bez
parts.
kitu, co? No to głupi przykład, nie? No ale masz bardzo potliwą łapę. Co jak ci skapnie coś na PCB?
So the Zero Mouse V35 is basically the end of the road for these mod kits. This will be the second mod
Nie,
kit.
mi się wydaje, że to nie jest dogadane z Razerem, ale to jest chyba legalne, żeby sprzedawać coś, jakby swój produkt, bo jakby on nie może sprzedawać myszek Razera, ale może ci powiedzieć, że hej, potrzebujesz części z myszki Razera do tego. Gdyby jakoś działał, bo to nie działa na szkodę firmy w żaden sposób. Gdyby działał na szkodę Razera, to myślę, że wtedy no to już jest case, ale to jest chyba legitne.
That I've done. Mod kit, by the way, is where you take an existing mouse, pull out the internals,
Ja
and
mam
put it
rękawiczkę w
in
sumie,
a
no.
new shell, which is what this is. I've said it before, but I'm not super keen on mod kits. They produce a lot of waste, and they're not very cost effective either. They have, though, been extremely good for this project because I've been able to see whether or not people like this style of mouse as much as I do. And the feedback so far has been really
A mi się
positive.
wydaje, że to już jest straszny gimmick, to już jest coś, co jemu pasuje, ale mi totalnie by nie siadło.
I mean, all of the changes have been, very gradual, little improvements over time, but when I look back at the V1 Zero Mouse, which is where this all started, it is crazy to see how much has changed. I mean, if nothing else, this has been an extremely fun project to work on. Also, I definitely don't hate full-sized gaming mice like this. I mean, they've actually been a big motivator for me to make something that feels more refined and contoured to aim with. It's just, I think this is pretty much as good as a medium-sized mouse will pretty much ever get. I mean, you think about like a Final Mouse ULX, for example, 38, 40 gram medium-sized mouse. I mean, that is pretty much as good as a medium-sized mouse with that shape is really ever gonna get.
Oh,
But coming back to this
kurwa,
thing,
mam
this
jedną.
16 gram prototype.
Not sponsored.
I love how minimal and extreme this thing is. It kind of just makes me want to play
Ta,
more.
Mati, tylko że jak to wydrukujesz z innego plastiku, to też pytanie, czy to nie mija się z celem.
Simply because I'm using this. And if nothing else, it's given me a glimpse of what a truly endgame gaming mouse could feel like, at least for me who really enjoys this style of mouse. Even with this cable, which is one of the main things I wanted to test here actually, it's the same as what you'll get on the Zonkonig M3K. It's stiff enough that you don't get that much cable whip. It's not one of those really soft, floppy cables where you actually do get quite a lot of whip. This cable is stiff enough that you avoid most of that, but at the same time, it's pretty thin and lightweight. Most people will still prefer the freedom of wireless and the convenience of a scroll wheel for games that benefit from that, but this extreme mode here is now definitely
Ty bez
on
kitu, jak to scrolla nawet nie ma, weź sobie poskacz w CS-ie.
the roadmap. And I will just say, gaming mice this
Shell
like
beton na myszce? Dla kurwa świrów, co lubią ciężary. Dla WK Dzika trzeba taką zrobić.
are not instantly going to turn you into, a top 500 Overwatch player or
Czemu
radiant
beton?
in
Od razu
Valorant,
beton
but
zbrojony?
Also, the world's best running shoes won't turn you into the best sprinter. The world's best camera won't turn you into an amazing photographer.
Wszyscy ci producenci myszek mają stare jakieś fabryki w Chinach, gdzie kurwa, wiecie, z turbo precyzją próbują tam wymaszynować jakiś design, a my, polska firma, będziemy z żelbetonu, po prostu będziemy mieszać beton czołem i będziemy robić z tego korpus myszki, bez kitu.
Much how I look at this and really any
Prawdziwy
other enthusiast
manufacturing.
equipment or tool. And also, good aim is so much more than just being able to move an object
azbestu,
with
żeby
your hand.
powdychać
It's
jeszcze,
about
no.
learning strafe patterns and animations. It's about predicting and anticipating where your target is going to move next. But when I swap between the Zero mouse and a full-sized mouse which is over double the weight, it is extremely clear
Owika kabla prętem zbrojeniowym zrobiona, ta.
what I would prefer to use.
Dziwne. Nie wiem, czy bym się zdecydował, ale pod testy może kiedyś. W grach wymagających latania myszką typu osy to musi wypadać z łapy pewnie. Dla tych pewnie osób to nie jest myszka. Ale do CS-a mogłoby być ciekawe. Myszka dla prawdziwego skurwysyna. Dokładnie, tak? To byłby branding tej firmy. To jest biznesplan. Za dużo lekkich myszek powstało. Trzeba teraz uderzyć w inny market.